I'm Kiersten. I am a recent college graduate of Florida State University, where I studied English with a concentration in creative writing and a minor in film studies. So I'm a writer, specifically a poet, and an aspiring actor as well.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
I am currently more working towards the acting as of late and moving to Los Angeles. And everything that I do in my professional and creative endeavors, my ultimate goal is to help others by uplifting, inspiring, and just kind of providing positivity and authenticity to this world.
Positivity and authenticity, those are two very powerful words. I love them. I love them.
Thank you.
All right, Kiersten, I want you to tell me a little bit about your background. So, were you born in Los Angeles? Can you tell me a bit about where you grew up?
I was actually born in Florida. Los Angeles is a recent thing. Um, I grew up in a single parent household. I had to work very hard for myself to be able to go to college. I was able to earn enough scholarships to have everything like paid for and done. So I was very grateful for that. I grew up in a super small town where everyone knew everyone. So Los Angeles in the big city is a big change for me there, but a good change for sure. Yeah, so I had a very good childhood, despite the single parent household, loving mother, my little brother who's like my best friend. So yeah, that was basically the gist of how I grew up and what has gotten me to where I am now.
That's great. So, when you were much smaller, what were those things that you like to do? Like, what were your passion?
Um, as a young person, I was also very creative and passionate above it, about anything creative, but above anything else, it was always movies. Always, always, always movies. Always watching movies on repeat. Probably driving my mom crazy watching the same thing over and over again. Um, it was always movies. It was always television. I grew up a lot. I had access to the media, and it was something that I really enjoyed watching. Kids shows growing up and always wanting to be on them, of course. So films, movies. I think growing up though, because I did have an interest, like I said, in school because I wanted to do work hard to get where I needed to be. So I did have an interest in school and, so that is science, math, all of that. But always my passion growing up was with the arts and in the creative fields mostly. Yeah.
What were your kind of movie that you were listening to, that you were watching, that sort of that you sort of like, that make you stay there to watch them?
When I was younger, I would say I did watch like a lot of the films that a normal kid would watch. I was obsessed with the movie. I don't know if you've heard of it, Babe. It's about a pig. As well as popular movies when I was younger, like Shark Boy and Lava Girl, if you've heard of that. I was so obsessed with that movie. I wanted to be a hero just like them. And, honestly, now I kind of have that same passion. Like, I want to portray these heroes. I want to give people who were like me when I was younger, who were maybe looking for friends or looking for people to connect to or look up to, I want to give them kind of the same opportunity through the characters that I create in my acting. But yes, movies of all sorts. I was always definitely interested in the comedy films when I was younger, although I believe that has changed a little bit now. So
That's great. So the film that we watch when we are much younger, they have a way of influencing us. I was reading about Elon Musk. I understand that when he was young, he was a small boy in South Africa. He liked to read a lot of comic books, these
Mhm.
superhero films. And according
Mhm.
to analysts, this film that he was watching, this superhero book that he was reading, it sort of come to form his identity at the end of the day and inspire him in what he's doing today. So
Mhm.
yeah, that is a good thing that to point out there that the story that you listen to when you are much younger have a way of influencing you even when you grow old. All right,
Mhm.
that's a good point.
Mhm.
Now, how did you get into writing? You want to share anything with us about that?
Yeah, so I had always been naturally just good at writing. I had I guess what you would call a gift. Um, in school, while I was always good at like the math and science and stuff because I pushed myself to be good at those things, writing came just naturally easy. And I suppose that's because my mom is also a writer. Um, she kind of does freelance work, but writing has always been a passion of hers and something she has turned to for personal expression. So I guess it trickled down to me. Um, Likely because I spent a lot of time with my mother and I love my mother, of course. So kind of rubbed off on me. So writing, that's when I started really writing. I remember I entered a writing contest when I was about, I would say, 7 years old. Um, and I think from there, that's when it really took off. Um, and when I got to college, I had initially intended to study film, but I ended up studying creative writing instead. Um, so yeah, writing has always just kind of been there, whether it's been in the background or at the forefront. It's always kind of been a part of who I am.
You see, everything's fall in place. That
Mhm.
those information that we get used to when we are much younger, they have a way of influencing us. You see your
Mhm.
mother writing, and now you are writing also, and you come to like it, and that is really very
Mhm.
interesting. Now, do you
Mhm.
want to tell me what do you really love about writing? What are the things that sort of influence you in it in the writing?
I suppose what I love about writing, and I guess it's also the same thing that I love about acting and just anything creative, is the connection that it fosters between, the writer, the author, the performer, and the audience, the connection that's there. I think I value human connection so much that writing is just another opportunity for me to build that connection between two people, and to provide people and offer people, again, like these friends that they may be in search of, people to relate to, that maybe they can relate to my characters, maybe they can relate to me as the author, the creator. That's what really inspires me with writing and with anything else, really. I think people in society, we often forget the power of art and how art makes us feel seen and heard and important. And that's what I try to do with my writing, is make people feel like people and like they have someone.
Thank you for that. And what kind of writing do you do? Tell us more about that.
At first, I had intentions to study specifically fiction, and I did work as a fiction editor for a little bit and an editorial assistant. But eventually, my focus did switch to poetry, which I think allows a lot more of the abstract creativity that I really like, where everything doesn't necessarily have to make sense, but somehow it makes sense, if that makes sense. Somehow it resonates with you even if you don't understand exactly what is being said. And I always loved that part of poetry. And so I gravitate towards poetry now. And I explore a lot of spiritual themes in poetry. I wrote, when I was in college, I wrote a thesis, it was a whole poetry collection that explored how people are singular, how they are one person, but at the same time, they're connected to everyone else and everything else in the universe. How we're never alone, really. Like every experience, while it may seem like a singular experience, um, it can be shared, and poetry is a good medium for sharing experiences and capturing feelings. And so, what's interesting about that project and what I also like about poetry is what I did for that project is I recorded each of the poems that I wrote to kind of further instill the idea that we're me as the writer and my audience were connected and we can read my poems together. And I think that's an interesting element of not only poetry that you see nowadays, especially on the internet, but like podcasts. Same thing with podcasts, how like audio can connect, and in films. And I know that sounds a bit silly, but audio and technology and stuff is another way that I feel like my writing is able to connect to more people.
I like the connection also. It's good. We
Mm-hmm.
all need to connect with one another. In fact, that is what we are. That is why we are here. That is what we are doing right now. We are connecting,
Mm-hmm.
because you are far away in Los Angeles, and I'm here in Italy, in Europe. Just now we are talking, and before now we didn't know ourselves, but thanks to our LinkedIn, we are able to connect there, and we are already talking. This is already
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. So
Mm-hmm.
it is
Yeah.
good. We really need to connect more and to share more. I'm sort of curious. What fuels your inspiration for writing? I understand now where the ideal is coming from. We understand that you love it, but what's actually fueling this inspiration from you to keep on writing? Do you want to say anything about that?
I suppose every day from like what inspires me to write every day and what fuels me is just it sounds kind of cliche, but life can be complicated and when or sometimes difficult to handle, and when you write, it makes it a little bit easier to process. And again, it can also help other people go through different things. So I guess the fuel for my writing has always been life. Inspiration has always been life. Um, Sometimes you need writing to help fuel your life. So it works in the opposite way. Maybe writing can help you get back to feeling a certain way in life. I know recently writing has been very healing for me. So I hope that makes sense. If,
It makes sense.
mhm,
Everything makes sense.
mhm,
Because it's about how we connect the dots together. I think it always makes sense. Now, you're writing, and you also did make mention of connection before, connecting. Are you in sort of maybe a group of other writers where you share idea and where you talk about writing, the exercise of writing, the writing process, and things like that? Is there anything you want to tell me about that?
Currently, I'm not really since I graduated, I'm not really in any writing groups, although I am definitely interested if anyone out there would like to start a writing group. But I find a community of writers through social media just naturally, interacting with their work, people who interact with my work. Um, it's not like a set, class where we get together and write together. Uh, just, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of these social media networks have kind of provided me with a writing community, even if we don't, meet up every so often. It's just we come across each other's work maybe randomly one day. But we recognize each other as a part of the community and support one another in our writing.
Now, from your experience as a writer, as somebody who writes, is it difficult to get into writing? I mean, for somebody who have never been a writer before, I want to start writing. I want to become a writer. Do you
Hmm.
think it's difficult, or what do you want to say about that?
Um, I don't suppose it's difficult. I think perhaps maybe the most difficult part is for someone who is not used to writing a lot is, like the more technical things like grammar, spelling, punctuation, stuff like that. I'm not really one who judges, whether writing is good or bad. I think the best writing just comes from, a place of truth and honesty. Even, the best fiction comes from a place of truth and honesty. So I feel like as long as you're writing from the heart, as cliche as that sounds, um, that's the best way to begin writing. That's the best way to keep writing. That's the best way to, you know, achieve. the best writing that you've ever achieved, to write the best thing you've ever written.
All right. Now you're the writer. I want to believe that you have some of your works out there, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, which is your best work so far? I want us to take out one.
Okay, I think, well, I suppose my opinion on my work changes. Sometimes one day I'll like something that I've written, and the next day I'll absolutely hate it. But that's just the life of a writer, I think. But I guess with everything being out that I have published right now, my favorite thing would be the poem that I have published in the Kudzu Review called While They Were Starting Families. Um,
While they were starting a family.
yes, while they were starting families.
All right. Tell me something more about that poem. I'm interested.
Okay. So that poem, a lot of my poems are written in the first person where I'm talking about, I did this, I did that. But this poem, I kind of created a character saying, this girl, she did this, she did that. This woman, she did this, she did that. Essentially, the poem is about someone who goes, a girl who goes against what is expected of her, or goes against tradition. Perhaps people would call her a little bit wild. She is not following the path of everyone else. She's not, settling down, getting married, and starting a family. She is experiencing life. Maybe it's not the best way to experience life, but it is her own way, and she is breaking from the norm.
All right, that's good. And what has been the reaction of the people, maybe when they go through that piece, and what did they tell you?
When people go through that piece, I actually had like a very positive response from that piece, which I appreciated and am really grateful for. Um, for I suppose what they most comment on about that piece is the specificity of it, and the precise vocabulary, the images that vocabulary evokes. So yeah, I would say that's what the reactions have been, and like what the comments have been that they have given me.
All right, now I'm sort of curious. Um, when you want to create a poetry, you want to create a poem, an idea comes to you and you want to put it down. And of course, the human brain is several hundreds, million, even billion of firing neuron all the time. The idea are always coming. They are flowing all the time. But
Mhm.
sometimes we do manage to say, okay, this one, yes, this one, I want to give emphasis to this. I want to elaborate on it. I want to make a movie about it. I want to write a book about this particular idea. But it doesn't
Mhm.
mean this is the only idea that came to your mind. They
Mhm.
are just flowing like light. And if you break
Mhm.
it down, there are actually billions and trillions of information just reaching you.
Mhm.
But how do you decide which one to concentrate on? Which poem, which topic of a poem to write? Help me with that.
So when it comes to writing poetry, I have this thing that my professor and mentor taught me. It's called a bits and kits journal. So basically, what it is you just hear something interesting, you get an awesome idea, and you just write it down in your journal, and you don't have to act on it immediately. You can come back to it. But essentially, you'll have this list of ideas and those things that have been firing off in your head that eventually you can come back to and create a kit out of. You have these bits that you can create a kit out of, which is like a poetry kit. It's like these ideas that you can arrange into a poem, I guess. Um, and so that's how I go about writing a poem. I have these little bits of ideas, and I make a kit, I make a poem, and that's how things work. I usually don't immediately get an idea and act on it because there's so much thought for me that goes into my poems, and even like stuff that my readers may not notice I've probably thought about for days, whether it's like a rhyme or a metaphor or something. So that's how that works for me, and I decide to write when I just feel that overwhelming urge. Sometimes you do have deadlines to meet, so you do have to go ahead and try to, I don't want to say force an idea, that sounds kind of negative, but you do have to try and, meet that deadline and come up with an idea. But for me, it's mostly, especially lately, since I don't have to meet so many deadlines, it's more about when I feel like I must write this, I have to write this, I need to speak my truth now. That often comes in very emotional times as well. Um,
Are you emotional when you write? Tell me about the power of emotion in your writing.
I would say that my best poems are born out of emotional times, because that's times where we're just the most vulnerable and willing to, put ourselves out there in order to be heard or to make sense of those emotions. So I do get emotional sometimes writing, whether I'm emotional before writing and I'm using writing to try and help understand those emotions, or sometimes during the writing process I can get emotional. And maybe that's because I'm writing, like a sad poem, but also maybe it's because I'm getting frustrated because I don't know how to work this idea into my poem. And ultimately, that frustration can you know, be something that finds its way into the poem and makes it a good poem. So yes, emotion is a big part of it, and I think it is an important part of it. And it comes back to that idea that I have about always wanting to be truthful and authentic.
Truthful and authentic. That is good. I like it. Now, when you get to that point where you become emotional about your writing, like you said, maybe frustrated because the idea just didn't get transformed the way you want it. Because, like I was saying before, the idea, there are very many billions and trillions, they are coming. They are
Mhm.
not already formed. They are just
Mhm.
pieces of information. You are the one that will put them together.
Mhm.
Because the person that have the idea of using an airplane to fly in the air didn't have the idea come like that. It just
Mhm.
one piece of it plus another piece and another piece. You are the one that is putting it together. The shape, you don't
Mhm.
even know how it's going to look, but you just shape it out together. Sometimes,
Mhm.
like you said, it is frustrating because you don't
Mhm.
have a template to copy from as a
Mhm.
work of art in most cases. Okay, if you are writing a book, I understand that you might know, okay, this is a bullet point, you need to have it like this idea. But in most of the cases, in the original work that we are doing, they are just
Mhm.
pure and neutral, they are raw. So you are the one
Mhm.
that is going to form it and transform it. Sometimes it is frustrating. Yes, I agree with you. In that
Mhm.
moment, when you become emotional, what do you do?
Um, well, if it's frustration that I am feeling, sometimes I will try to push through, and like I said, it will result in a good poem. Sometimes though, you just get so frustrated, you have to perhaps stop writing for the day, leave it alone for a second, let your ideas marinate for a little bit, let everything, your emotions pass through and come back and revisit it later. Or maybe I go and work on editing another poem and then I can come back and work on what was making me frustrated. Um, I think it's all about just accepting that frustration and working through it however you can, instead of saying, okay, this is done, I'm not writing anymore, I can't do it anymore. Um, Sometimes maybe you do just need a little break from writing, and that's okay. Um, and like I said, sometimes working on something else, another piece of writing, or just something else creative can help you work through that frustration and help you calm down a bit. Hmm.
And if you were to look at maybe your work of art, your writing, poetry, is there a message that runs through all of them that you know of? Maybe something you are trying to communicate through your writing.
Um, Through all of my writing, I think like the central message would be that, I don't know, I suppose it's just that we're all human and we all deal with things and we all have things we have to work through. We all have complications, issues. We all have good moments. We all have bad moments. Again, it's all, for me, it's always about connection and connecting to people. Um, so I suppose that would be like the underlying message of all of my stuff is, the human experience, human interaction, humanness, just the beingness of people. People are always the focus for me.
All right, that's great. That's great. Um, Now, we all learn from each other. No, we all learn from those who have been here before us. Like is often said, uh, we stand on the shoulder of giants. That is why we're able to see far ahead of us. Otherwise, we cannot see. We cannot see very far. But because
Mhm.
people have already been here before us, they have showed the way. We suffer less than they suffer, and we get
Mhm.
more in most of the cases than they would have done. But this is
Mhm.
thanks to them because they have
Mhm.
laid the foundation for us. Now, who are you learning from? Who is inspiring you? Maybe an author, a poet out there, you can say, okay, that is my hero. I want to be like him. I want to be like her.
Mhm. For me, when it comes to writing, I've always been a fan of the classics. Um, so when I look to someone for inspiration and someone I want to be like in poetry, I think my top person would be Walt Whitman. He's a poet that many people know, many people study, but he is someone who is an expert in capturing the human condition and what it means to be connected and one with others and with the universe. So definitely Walt Whitman. He's one of my favorites. He is my favorite. Um, and especially his collection, Leaves of Grass, was something that was very eye opening for me and very inspiring for me.
I really find that to be very interesting. Thank
Hmm.
you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. In your explanation before, you said that you are getting into acting. That, in
Hmm.
fact, that is where you are spending most of your time now, if I'm not mistaken. Can you tell me
Hmm.
more about that? How did you get into acting?
I think it all began when I was a kid, again, always being obsessed with movies and television. And, so I feel as if people always grow up, a lot of people grow up, they always, like, children always want to be like movie stars and stuff one day. And honestly, I thought being in school and stuff, I thought for myself that I would eventually outgrow it, but it was just a dream that I never outgrew. And I knew it was something eventually that I had to pursue. And so I did, in college, early on in college, I started, in addition to taking classes, regular classes for my writing, I started studying with an acting coach. So that's where I am now. That's what I'm working towards now. I have a lot to learn. I know much more about writing than I do about acting, I suppose, but I'm working on learning more now and finding opportunities to learn more. And yeah, so that's how acting, you know, started. Kind of a dream that I never outgrew.
What do you like about acting? What is fascinating for you about acting that you are studying it?
Hmm. Again, the connection always important to me. But also, I've always just been the type of person that wants to be and do a million and one things. Um, I still haven't outgrown my dream of being, president of the United States one day. And maybe that won't happen.
That's
Maybe it
great.
will.
That's
But
great.
maybe at least I can play, the president of the United States one day in a film, or maybe I can be a doctor one day in a film. So I think acting gives you the opportunity to live out all your dreams and be the different people you never got to be, and that's what's so fun about it. And again, you can always, create these characters and be these people that allow other people uh, to feel as if they have someone or can connect to someone and relate to someone. I see myself focusing mainly in acting for film and television. While I am a fan of theater, I definitely like how the film and television industry works more when it comes to, performance. I'm definitely a person that likes to experiment a little bit more and have a few opportunities to do that. So, like with film and television, you have multiple takes, and then rather than in theater, you have to, you have one shot to do this performance for a live audience. So that's one thing that draws me more to film and television. But yes, I see myself being a film and television actress. I hope, to go for all of the awards one day. I'm someone who when I do something, I put all of my effort into it and I don't stop until, like I achieve what I want to achieve. So, yeah, I see myself being hopefully successful in the art and, you know, being able to maybe one day when am president of the United States, I can look back and say I also had a successful acting career and a writing career, But yes, that's what I just want. I really have no. I suppose I don't really have a goal of I want to get this award and get this much money and this much money. For me, it's just about fulfilling, this dream that I've always had and doing something that I'm passionate about. It's not really about anything else, any external motivating factor like the money, the fame, stuff like that. As long as I'm doing what I love, there's really no other, reason to do it or just no other, external goal to strive for. Although, of course, like awards and recognition are signs that you have, come a long way. And of course, they're nice. And of course, I would love to achieve those things. But I just don't really see myself striving solely for those things.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the sharing. We appreciate the sharing and also the information that you share with the people here. All right, now for people who want to connect with you, who want to work with you, because again, we are here for the connection. How can they reach out to you? So use this few seconds to promote yourself and what you do.
Okay, so I suppose for professional things, the best way to contact me would be through LinkedIn, which I know is how you found me as well. So yes, definitely through there. I also have social media. I'm working on being a better social media person. My coaches are making me be better at social media, so I'm trying to build my Instagram up and stuff like that. I mean, I can share my Instagram. My Instagram is Kiersten Wright _ and that is the main social media I am on right now and focusing on and trying to build. But yes, those two, LinkedIn, Instagram, would probably be the best way of reaching me. And LinkedIn definitely for more professional things.
All right. Thank you for that. Now, what will be your final message here, considering what we have discussed today about what you do, your writing, and also your acting? We touched it in the beginning, in the ending part of it. It might be a message or something you just wanted to say I did not ask you. So go ahead and do that.
My final message would be, I suppose sometimes when it comes to creative things, we tend to kind of put them on the back burner in an effort to satisfy what we think others want us to do, something more practical, something more logical, something that will, pay the bills. I think my final message would be to always go for what you want in the arts. I think the arts are important. There's ways to, make careers out of the arts. So I would say don't let people get to you when they say maybe choose something more practical. Is that even a realistic goal? Maybe not become an artist. You can do something else better. I say go for it. I think it's always important to go for what you're passionate about, and it's always important to create and connect through those creations.
Thank you so much. Be bold, be brave, and take it. The world belongs to you. The world belongs to the doer. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and also the sharing.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I do have a wonderful time. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you in the next episode.